And now, please join us for Course Conditions Elevated. Toro Spatial Adjust Real-World Success Stories with Michael Wolpoff, Tyler Truman, Rob Collins, and Calvin Wilson.
We're excited to have you here for what promises to be an insightful discussion with superintendents from some of the top courses around the country as they share their experiences with Toro's new Spatial Adjust software, a first-of-its-kind software tool that provides precision irrigation control. Specifically designed for golf courses, Spatial Adjust uses turfRad sensors mounted on Toro fairway mowers and commercial equipment. These sensors collect real-time soil moisture data during routine operations, which is integrated into the Lynx central control platform. This allows superintendents to adjust and refine irrigation schedules and volume based on actual field conditions. Toro has long been on the forefront of innovation, pushing boundaries across a variety of industries, including irrigation. Today, we'll hear firsthand how the golf courses are using Spatial Adjust software for optimized golf course management. I am thrilled to introduce our 4 distinguished superintendents who will share their perspectives and practices with irrigation. Michael Wolpoff, with Arroyo Trabuco Golf Club in Mission Viejo, California. Tyler Truman with Mountain Vista Golf Club in Sun City, Palm Desert, California. Rob Collins, Paradise Valley Country Club in beautiful Paradise Valley, Arizona. And Calvin Wilson from Austin Country Club in Austin, Texas. All right, well, let's get started with the first question. So before adopting Toro's Spatial Adjust software, many of you relied on manual sampling and manual irrigation adjustments. Can you describe the shift in your daily workflow and how much productivity you've been able to gain?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all been in the situations where we're trying to fine-tune our irrigation system, get things right where we want, and you still end up with a wet spot here, dry spot there, and you've either upped your percentages, deep in the settings, and you forget about it until, it's a wet spot and it's a dry spot, turns into a wet spot, et cetera. And, I had been using turfRad prior and was using it to manually make adjustments and make some smart programs and links and things like that. But when we stepped into Spatial Adjust, it really has just given us that ability to, for lack of a better term, just nail it, right? You give it the moisture that you're shooting for, and it really pretty much does the rest to help you get there. And when it surpasses it, it backs it back off, and when you're under, it gets it right back up there. So, workflow-wise, before either of those tools, you just couldn't do it. I mean, you got however many hundreds of fairway sprinklers if you're just doing fairways, and you could employ 5 extra guys trying to adjust, run times all the time, and you just couldn't make that happen. And now it's a matter of, I don't know, my average afternoon when I go to make the settings and push them over into links, it's maybe 5 minutes to make that happen.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to go next? I'll go next.
Tyler.
That way I'm not last and have to speak extra. I started out with Toro using the Turf Guard 7-8 years ago, with Toro trying to find out what we're trying to do now with the turfRad is identifying areas that we could make adjustments instead of all at once making a few adjustments. And it took time. It took 40, 50 minutes or more each day to make those adjustments using the Turf Guard and having our fairway irrigation system divided in very wet, dry areas. It still took a long time to do this. And then once we switched over to the turfRad with the Spatial Adjust, it's 4 or 5 minutes to make that adjustment, and it's game changing. And one of the things when we first started out there, we just started with like 1 or 2 fairways And within 3 or 4 weeks, I've decided we're just going to do everything instead of going little by little, and we just jumped in. It made it so much easier to make those adjustments. And yes, the first few weeks it went up and down, but within 2 or 3 weeks, everything evened out on our fairways, and probably the most consistent that I've been on my fairways in regards to moisture with wet areas or dry areas.
And how many fairway sprinklers do you have?
On that particular course, I want to say around 500 to 600 sprinkler heads.
Okay. All right. How about for you, Rob?
So in our case, we started, adopting moisture measuring early on, and we used a number of different tools to do that, and pretty quickly we would assemble a team, kind of a second job team, to go out and monitor soil moisture. So we would send out 3 or 4 employees with taking point data. We would walk this grid. It might be a 6 or 8 or 12 pace grid. And we'd do that for hours. We'd bring the data back and we would analyze those 4 or 5 holes. And we had mapped our irrigation system. And so we, in essence, we're doing manually what Spatial Adjust does. We would look across the maps, identify the sprinklers that were out of adjustment, make a station adjustment, and we would just keep that cycle going. So we might sample the whole golf course in a week or so. Absolute game changer with turfRad and Spatial Adjust. We deploy it in the morning. We get all of that data in a couple of hours. I think what's really amazing to me is the amount of change that takes place in an individual sprinkler. It is shocking.
Really?
To the point that, we tried to do this manually, and we just couldn't do it. Over a given week, you may take a given sprinkler. It may increase or decrease by 30% in a day. It may be turned off for 2 days, and then it comes back on. And so the amount of change in order to produce uniform moisture, which I think that's the real key, is that, we could talk, I have talked for hours about distribution uniformity, and now we're talking about moisture uniformity, and they're completely different.
How about for you, Calvin?
Yeah, so I came up learning and doing by going through the Links Map app on our phone and putting heads on hold. I think we've all been through that. You drive the golf course in the morning, you're putting heads on hold. Something that's ran too long, you see a dry spot here in the morning, let's bump that up. And you have that list, and at the end of the day, you're spending 45 minutes to an hour going through that list, making adjustments, and it's guesswork. And we found with Spatial Adjust, we got humbled real fast. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. There were some situations where heads were running, or heads needed to run way longer than what we expected, and didn't have any dry spots or wet spots that following day. And it kind of took away that reactive approach that I think a lot of us face daily. And I wouldn't even call it proactive. It was just, you just do it. It's precise, it's precision. And it just allowed me to finish my day without having to go through Links software and put all these heads on hold, like I said. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Great. We often hear that traditional irrigation scheduling can lead to overwatering as a safety net. How has the move to precision irrigation through Spatial Adjust technology impacted the actual playability of your fairways, specifically around firmness and uniform moisture levels? And have any of your members or management noticed any difference? And we'll reverse order. How about we have you start with Calvin?
Okay. So in terms of uniformity, kind of goes back to what I was just saying. You're driving the golf course in the morning and we're running out of these areas where we were traditionally hot or traditionally wet. It didn't matter how many times I put these heads on hold or whatever the case is, bumping the irrigation down. Those spots completely disappeared. And I was in awe. It took one of you said it, a few weeks for a lot of that to kind of adjust. But when that happened, I was shocked with just the overall performance. And we've had that optimal moisture that we all, strive for day in and day out, the firm and fast conditions that we all want. We ended up getting that without the sacrificing of that heat stress that we battle, and all of us battle. When it's 105 degrees outside and everything's cooking, that completely disappeared.
Great.
I couldn't agree more. I think, when you start talking about moisture management and irrigating for quality and things like that, initially it's about sustainability and conservation and all of those things, which are really important and valuable. But there is no question that this is a quality-driven effort, and the improvement in turf quality, uniformity, firmness is outstanding. It's better than we could do with other tools. It's just that striking. So, really outstanding.
Fantastic.
I'm going to agree with everything else that's been said there. With uniformity, one of the things that we did, and I thought I was pretty good at watering, like you were saying, but it's also one of those things, as you start using the turfRad and the spatial adjust on that, is, no, I'm not as good as I thought I was. It's very humbling to see that. For an example, this winter after a rainstorm that we had, we'd go out and use it. Now we don't need to water. We'd go out another day later, nothing. A week later, it's still saying, no, that you not need to water. And just the uniformity of taking that extra week and a half of not watering the fairways makes that much more difference for playability, not being really wet out there, but it's getting to where it's right where our residents and our members want those things, the fairways. They're not having water splash up on their carts or puddles in different areas.
Sure.
So that's one of the things that our residents have noticed is we don't have a little bit of ponding or areas that are extra wet where their ball lands.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have covered pretty much everything in the uniformity department. Yes, I would say, our stakeholders at my facility definitely have noticed a difference in the appearance of the golf course. When I first started with Spatial Adjust in particular, I took 3 holes and I went at 6 different 3-hole groups and went at 6 different percentages, moisture percentages that I targeted, and it really allowed me to kind of see what actual number kind of fit the bill, both from an aesthetic perspective as well as playability, and then we kind of massaged it from there once we determined that percentage. And I'll be real honest, I use a little bit more water now than I did before, but the conditions are significantly better and more uniform. So even when I was using less water, I still ended up with wet spots and drier spots, etc. And now again, that stuff is, for the most part, melted away. So really happy with it.
Great.
Yeah.
So, thinking about adopting new technology, it's natural to be a bit skeptical. Especially when you've been doing this job in a certain way for many, many years, and you all have a great deal of experience. What was that kind of aha moment for you when you realized that the system was managing wet and dry spots better than previous methods? And for superintendents that are considering adopting this tool, what should they expect for like an adjustment period? Anybody?
I'll go ahead and start on this. I'll take this one first. I think the aha moment was within the first 2 weeks. We started using this, and I'm one to jump feet first into anything, any new technology, and try it out, and I get myself in trouble. So I listened to Toro, and I says, 1 fairway at a time. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And after that first week, it's looking good. Do the second one, second fairway, third fairway that way. And about week 2 or 3, I went back to Toro, and I says, you know what, I'm just going all in. I'm seeing too many good things happen here with the uniformity of the fairways getting better, less wet spots, the dry spots went away. And so it was within 2 to 3 weeks that it's like, okay, this is a game changer all in, and I'm really happy with it.
Fantastic.
I will echo that. Same experience. You know, you start like anything. You kind of start into something. You're not sure what to expect. Bearing in mind, you know, we were doing this manually, you know, for really years prior. The difference and the improvement was so striking and so immediate that, yeah, we ignored the rules and it went out everywhere immediately, no question.
Great.
Same story. I mean, I was starting it on one fairway and you know, monkeyed around with that for a week or so, 10 days. I'm like, this is pointless, kind of. And I'm like, rolled it out to everything and never looked back. As for the actual technological side of it and everything, it's really not that daunting. I mean, it seems like it's a really crazy setup, I guess, but it's really straightforward. My aha moment was honestly years ago, meeting with honestly the guys from turfRad at the time, and just kind of looking at their roadmap about where they wanted it to go, and then ultimately with the partnership with Toro and now Spatial Adjust, it was like, that's where it's going to go. And I was telling someone on the floor earlier today, I was very happy, but happily surprised at honestly how quickly it actually materialized and at the quality level that it did.
Yeah, I agree with what all of you had said, and I was a skeptic of it at first. Wasn't sure what to think about it, and my aha moment came day one, which I was shocked about. I didn't want to really believe that, but I vividly remember going through and I'm checking all the run times that turfRad or Spatial Adjust had suggested, and there was one that stood out to me that didn't make sense, and it was on a part of the fairway that we never really had issues with, and it told me that I needed to run the head for about 45 minutes. At that time, we weren't running anything longer than 20 minutes, and I'm like, man, that doesn't seem right. So I decided to set it, and I told myself in the morning, that's the first place I'm going in the morning. So pitch black outside, I got the cart running out there, and I drove right through that spot thinking I was going to run into a wet spot. You couldn't even tell. I was completely blown away. And so then I had basically taken that strategy and moved it over to a wetter fairway. And I wanted to see what it would suggest, and I drove through that part of the fairway, same deal that we normally have wet spots on. And again, you could not tell. And it goes back to the previous question about the uniformity. We ran out of all of those issues. And so after, I would say about a week of kind of like you said, monkeying around on those two fairways, I went ahead and pushed the entire golf course to see what would happen. And I was blown away by what I saw. I still go in and check all the run times daily after we push those changes and make sure that just the numbers make sense. But overall, I was very pleased with what I have found.
Great. So Rob, I have a specific question for you. At your course in Paradise Valley, the transition period for overseeding has improved and reduced your need to rely on sod. How did the Spatial Adjust tool specifically assist in moisture management during these critical windows?
Yeah, so I think many in the audience probably are aware of the kind of the process we go in transitioning from perennial ryegrass back to Bermuda grass that happens, spring and early summer, and that can be an ugly process. And I've been doing that for over 30 years, and every year is a challenge. What we've known for a long time is where we have, let's say, significant wilt events through the spring months, that we transition much more poorly in those areas. And so much of our management is oriented at uniformity, moisture uniformity, and things like that. And we do our best to achieve that. Last year, that was my aha moment. The completeness and uniformity of transition was dramatically improved, and the only thing I can assess that with is the Spatial Adjust and turfRad. It made a huge difference, way less sod, and huge improvement in quality for a summer season.
Great, fantastic. So, final question before we open things up, which we've actually gotten through these questions pretty quickly, which is great, because hopefully we will have lots of questions from the audience. But final question is, beyond reduced labor, increased productivity, consistent course conditions that have been discussed, are there any other inputs that have been improved by this precision irrigation? And then finally, what advice would you have for other superintendents considering spatial adjust technology?
I'll speak first on this. In terms of the advice portion, give it time. And you've got to put in work. At the end of the day, it's a tool, it's not the Bible. And just like anything else that we do, double check it, but make sure that it makes sense to you. And you will have an adjustment period. You know, every hole might be different or will be different. Our courses are all different. You know, what you need with your spatial adjust might be different than what I need. And but once you kind of dial it in, give it, you know, 3-4 weeks like we had talked about, and you find that sweet spot, it really does make life that much easier. You don't have to really worry about your irrigation, at least on your fairways going forward. It's kind of a set it and forget it and move on. So I've been pleased with it in that aspect.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I think that it's a great point. It's a tool, and like any tool, it comes down to refining your use of it and getting better. And seasonally, there are some slight adjustments. You know, you set a target volumetric water content for a sprinkler. If you have 2,500 sprinklers, that's an ongoing effort. You may see that winter is much different than summer, and so. Again, like any tool, you adjust its use based on what you're trying to achieve.
And that's a great point, because you do have the ability to change those parameters as you go through different seasons.
Yes.
I'll go next on this. Like I said, I'm one that'll jump into technology really quick and embrace it. When we went to this, I jumped in really quick on that and really enjoyed it, to where I'm getting to the point now with the spatial adjust. I'm comfortable enough that I don't want to make the pushes. I just want it to do it automatic, because that's one less thing. Doesn't mean I don't go in and check the data on a daily basis when we do those things to look at what the moisture is. But that's where I'm getting to be comfortable with this product, that I want to just make the changes for me. I've seen it for the last year. It's made the changes that I probably would have made, even more extreme or less, to be able to dial in my irrigation system. So I'm happy with where it goes, and that's a lot of times you just trust the information that you're receiving there. It's when you get a sprinkler that says you need to put 45 minutes of water on it or 60 minutes of water, it's like, does it really need that? And yeah, it does. You're not seeing those wet areas after you go out and do that. Or you see the area that's been turned off for 2 weeks. It's like, do we really need to add any more water? Well, no, we don't on that. So it's something to embrace. I think this is where the future's going, with the different technologies that are out there, and having both to be able to be integrated, so you don't spend an hour or 2 hours making these adjustments that it automatically doesn't.
Yeah, very, very similar stuff. I am a diagnosed habitual early adopter, so so it was really easy to kind of take this on. And as everyone said, I can empathize with people sitting in the audience maybe that are like, we're taking our expertise out of the mix, and I will emphasize that that's not the case. I would certainly say, as everybody has mentioned, it feels like set it and forget it, but as anybody who's familiar with Lynx or any other up-to-date irrigation control system, there is still a lot of levels of management that you need to do with your system to really get it to dial in and work as well as you want it to. But again, back to, I think I mentioned it earlier, there's just not enough labor in the world to adjust 500, 600 sprinklers every single day. You just can't do it manually. And so this gives you that opportunity. And I mean, I think it's worth taking a look at really closely if you're interested in it.
Great. Well, why don't we open it to the audience for some questions? And okay, we have some, and we have a mic, so go ahead.
Can you speak to like how you established your baseline? I'm sure everybody has a different starting point of where you want to establish the moisture content. So can you speak to how you established your baseline and then made your adjustments after that?
Yeah, I think I might have started mentioning it earlier. When I first set it up on all 18, I just broke the course out into like 3 different sets of holes and ran a gamut of I think like 12%, 14%, 16, 18, etc., and monitored that for a period of time. Found the number that seemed to work the best around the course, adjusted everything to that number for a while, and then beyond that, then you started making hole-by-hole adjustments because some needed a little more, a little less, and then ultimately down to the granularity of station by station. But to start, I just did it to try to find that kind of what the whole course would be about. I just did it, broke it up by 3 holes and ran them all at different percentages for a while and kind of took what we saw.
When I started with the baseline, with the turf guard, I already knew where I wanted to be or how low I could go with the moisture on my fairways and stuff like that, which is around 15. If I go below that, then I will start really seeing a lot of stress. So I know that's my baseline. Then I adjusted up from that where I wanted to be, which is around 20 to 22% on that. And so that's where I started from, knowing how the minimum amount of water that I needed to be able to put out on that, and then adjusted accordingly.
Yeah, same with me. Our staff using handhelds would take moisture readings. We kind of know the sweet spot, and it happens pretty quickly. You start, you push the data, and you see the changes at each station, just how significant they are. It takes a moment to trust that, but you get to that trust, and away you go.
Yeah, when we first started using it, I had gone out with the moisture meter and probed a couple optimal spots in the fairways to kind of see what that reading was. And we started about 20% on our fairways. And over time, we slowly took that number down just 1% at a time. And they've got this great feature where you can bulk adjust the entire golf course with, so it's kind of easy. And anyways, we kept going just 1% at a time until we really found what we wanted. And going into our member one weekend, I said, we'll drop it down to 15% and see what happens, and came in the next day, and we were firm and fast. And at that point, I said, well, we know 15% is too low. And so right now, our sweet spot's 18%. We kind of ride that, so it's been great.
I had a question just about deep and infrequent. Are you guys all watering daily, or are you guys doing multiple days of not watering and then watering every third day or something like that?
With the Spatial Adjust, I go off what it says. If it says don't water, it doesn't water. If a sprinkler says it needs to water for 45 minutes, it'll water for 45 minutes. It goes out, it does another scan, and then adjusts from there. So we're not doing I'm watering to what my plant needs. Obviously, if we do a flush for salts or something like that that will offset everything, and then you kind of start over again, bringing things back into adjustment. A question was asked to me while we're going through this process is this one of those things where you use it once and then it's dialed in? I say no. It's one of those things that will stay in our toolbox from now until I leave that area, this property, that it's going to be part of our program and how we water our golf course.
Yeah, I agree with that. The idea of set it and forget it, I think is that it really doesn't apply. If you think about, especially for golf courses like ours, we're open all year long. Sun angles in the winter compared to the summer, shade patterns, all of those things create so much disuniformity that that each sprinkler needs to adjust. And even the, again, you set the station to a volumetric water content, your target. We're finding that that we need to adjust that seasonally as well. And so again, it's an ongoing fine-tuning thing. You're engaged in irrigation, but just with greater success.
Have any of you played around with adjusting thresholds down for tournament play? And if so, what kind of results did you get?
So the question was adjusting down for tournament play.
Yeah, I think kind of as I had mentioned earlier, we've got our sweet spot, which is 18%, and we kind of dropped that down for one of our tournaments, and the golf course was, it held up great, but it was hot that first day, and so we kind of have an idea now of during these tournaments, a day out, a couple days out, go ahead and drop that percentage to, I would say in our situation, maybe 17%, 16%. It's only 1% off of our normal, 2% off of our normal, but it does make that much of a difference. And it goes back to that uniformity. It's course-wide, which makes it great.
I don't have a lot of tournament experience, so I won't answer.
So typically you have a water window that you can work with, right? 9 p.m., 10, whatever, until 6 a.m. For us, we have really heavy clay soils in central Indiana. So is there an adjustment within that spatial control to where it'll optimize that water window, and then will it play? We cycle and soak. That's what we do. We can't just put down 45 minutes, right? Most places can't do that. So will the software kind of put that into the mix as well, and adjust those cycle and soak times so that you can still get in all the water you need within your optimal window?
Spatial Adjust itself, to my knowledge, doesn't do that, but Lynx does. So you're within Lynx, you can do those things. You can set your specific stations to have certain cycle and soak times that you want them to have. And so it obviously plays well with that, because ultimately it's just Lynx that's running it. It's just Spatial Adjust is sending over the run times. That's really all that it's ultimately. It's figuring out what they need to be, but it's what's sending it over into Lynx. But Lynx should be able to handle most of that in terms of actually packing it into your water window within your. And if you're in a situation where, like we said, in the first couple weeks where things are a little more fluctuant as you're kind of figuring out where you're at, you might run into a couple times where your water window is not quite big enough. But I think once you get to the number you're looking for, you're not going to have as much going on to impact that.
I think with that too as well, just as many heads that Spatial Adjust will suggest that needs to be bumped up, there's that many heads that are saying that it needs to be bumped down. And so the first time I ran it, I had a 20% reduction. I was shocked. And we weren't running nearly as much water over time. And so where we're at, where we're battling water restrictions, I think all of us are battling water restrictions in some way or another. Your water window, our water window actually got a little bit shorter. And it was just due to the heads that didn't need to run. And there's heads out there that it would suggest that ran for 3 minutes. I made the comment about the 48 minutes, but I had one head that was 48 minutes, and I think I had maybe 5 that needed to run for 3 on that same fairway. So don't think that your water window is going to explode with a 48-minute runtime. It's actually got shorter.
The gentleman here was asking about whether we've had to calibrate, and that would ultimately be down to the turfRad sensors. I've ground truthed them over the last 3 years. I've been using turfRad probably twice a year just to kind of check, and I haven't noticed anything wildly off with them. And I've gone through several iterations of their panels as they produce new ones or mine break or whatever it is, but they all kind of come in the same kind of in that same boat, right? They're not wildly different. Mine are mounted on a cart in an array, and so it really has been quite stable. I would also say, honestly, even if it were off by a couple percents from, let's just say, a TDR or a pogo, the key for me is as long as it is consistent within itself, I'm really happy with that. And it is pretty close to what you get on TDR, but there's a little variance there for sure.
Are you seeing a notice with your fungicide applications, or is it the window? Are you able to handle your fungicides applications longer, or is it still like the same window with your watering?
I don't make any fungicide applications on fairways.
Yeah, I don't
you guys.
make many, but what I'll say is that the fundamental is achieving healthy turf, and your defense against anything, whether it's disease or insect pressure, having healthy turf is the number one goal. Watering uniformly and producing the turf quality that you expect. I think that's part of that first goal, and we're definitely achieving that.
I don't use a lot of fungicides, but I'm looking to switch from grasses, from Bermuda grass to zoysia grass on my golf course. One of the things that I've noticed is the zoysia patch and watching how much water we put out. And this is one of those tools that I'm looking to more forward with as we expand the zoysia, as we see that is moisture has an impact on when that zoysia patch shows up, along with fertility and stuff like that. So as we monitor that moisture, I've noticed that zoysia patch doesn't show up. But on the edges where we have a little bit more water throwing into those areas, we've had that disease pop up a little bit. So with this new technology, I think in the future, I can't prove it or say it, but what I've seen, this will help with, I think, disease pressure in some of those areas.
Are all of you using the cart mount or mower mounted version?
Right now I'm using on the mower mount, just for staffing purposes. How staffing is really hard. It's hard for me to send one person out to do this on the acreage that I have, and the staffing that I have, so I do it 3 times a week on the back of one of our fairway units. And 3 times right now is sufficient. I would like to do it more because I like looking at the data also, how things change on a daily basis, but you can see that just with the mounting on the mower.
We had started with the mower mount, and as we transitioned into the winter, we went ahead and our awesome mechanic, Don Rutherford, who's sitting back there, built us a mount for our carts, which we can run daily. I scanned the entire golf course while managing the crew in 2.5 hours. It was really efficient.
Yeah, cart mounted. Since day one, when I first got turfRad, just don't mow fairways quite enough to gather the data needed. So a lot of flexibility in the cart. We also have a little hotspot in the cart, so every 3 holes he just stops and uploads the data. So when we're out there actually doing spot irrigation in the morning, we're operating off of that morning scan while we're doing it. And I believe I'm authorized to say that there is works within Toro to get Spatial Adjust to actually reference whatever we ran in the morning while it makes it recommendations for for that evening. Right now, it doesn't pay attention to what we ran in the morning, so you're getting a little bit of potentially some extra watering there, but they are working on that to be able to encapsulate that as well.
We're deploying a cart as well.
And Michael, I think you bring up a good point. And I think it's important to recognize that similar to what we've done with many of our technologies, we're on a journey and we're continuing to look for future enhancements, and it's working with great beta customers like yourselves to give us a lot of insight into what we may want to be thinking about for the future. We're on an evolution.
Yes.
Do we have any additional questions from the audience? Alexis, yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to know, in what ways has the use of Spatial Adjust made your day, week easier?
I'd say one of the things that's made it easier, like, again, I have my irrigation foreman here with me also. I think having this where he doesn't have to go in and adjust 500 sprinkler heads or look for those wet spots, it's made his life easier. It's made my life easier not having to worry about that. It's saved us a lot of time and a lot of less sleepless nights knowing that these things won't be overwatered in these areas. So it's made a huge impact where I spend my time and where my irrigation foreman spends his time adjusting sprinklers throughout the day.
You know, there's an intangible there as well. You know, our teams all want to be better. We all want to produce better quality, want to do these things together and achieve new goals and standards. And when you adopt technology like this, it's almost contagious with your team. They get excited about that. They're doing something new. It just kind of goes throughout your staff, and everybody kind of responds to that. And that's something that we've noticed by adopting things like this. That, like I say, it's contagious. Everybody loves it.
Any final questions? Yes.
Will you accept all of the runtime changes, or I'm not exactly sure how it works, but if you have 500 stations and then it's going to recommend that you change some of the runtimes, do you accept all of them? Do you not accept all of them?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
One of the things that you do when it pushes it over, you're able to go in and adjust or accept or say, you know what, I want this one to actually run a little bit more than what it's saying or a little less. So you can make those adjustments before you push everything.
Will you guys typically accept all of them? Or?
Yeah, right now as it sends stuff over, if it says push 486 stations, I'm pushing 486 stations.
Yeah, I echo that. I would say I do almost all of them. To Ingrid's point, and just the progression of the software, they did implement early on a kind of a filter. So I can put in a threshold and it'll say, I just say 225% your normal runtime, let's just say, and it'll show me all the stations that are adjusted, that are going to adjust above that percentage. So I can just quickly look and say, okay, do I think that's okay? Because I don't have to look through every single station. Because stuff that's, generally, at a, 80% to 150%, I'm probably pretty good with it. But it starts getting up a little higher, I want to put eyes on it, and it makes it easy to do that.
Thanks.
Great. Question up there.
Or in certain situations, courses have water budgets. I'm only allowed to run X amount of water for a month, X amount of water for a week. Are you able to put those parameters in there, and will it optimize to say, okay, if you've only have this many gallons of water to use, here's the best place to put it?
That's an awesome question.
That is a great question.
That's a great idea.
I'm not in that condition, and to my knowledge, no, there's not that ability in it yet, but John's standing back there,
Yeah.
and so, Thomas, that's a great one.
I think, as Ingrid said, with the technology progressing, the different things that can come up, I think that's something that will be built or could be built into that, taking into, guess what, we only have X amount of gallons, or we need to reduce by 30, 40% because they're putting us under water restrictions. I think that's where this becomes even more effective, saying, hey, we need to reduce 30% or 20%, whatever it is. Where can I do this but still maintain my tees, fairways, or greens, or things like that? One of the things that I'm asking for from the turfRad stuff is I have 500 acres of turf where we're doing this. I'm only doing it on one golf course, but looking to do it on other areas is to expand this where the majority of my acreage is in rough. And I know they're working on that hard to be able to dial those in things. So when I do, or if I do get put on restrictions or stuff like that, I will know where I can reduce that, but still keep my main playable areas in the best conditions they can be.
Great. Well, we want to sincerely thank our panelists for making yourselves available, and they'll probably be milling about if you have some questions afterward. And want to thank all of you for coming to listen to this conversation. And if you have additional questions, please feel free to stop by the Toro booth. We have several experts. We also have our partners from turfRad there as well. So they'll be there to answer any questions that you have. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you.